What's going on, guys? So, there's been a lot of questions about the 911 call regarding the University of Idaho incident, right? Police come out and said that the 911 call was initially for an unconscious person, and then they say that the crime scene was a very bloody, gruesome scene. That kind of throws everything into speculation of what do you mean? How did they only know it was an unconscious person? What happened? And then you had rumors come out, and people were saying that they had found someone unconscious, and the police wouldn't tell who called 911, who the 911 caller was. They did say that they don't believe that the 911 caller was the killer, but aside from that, they didn't really give us much information other than it was placed by one of the roommates' phone. When they say that, it makes it sound like the roommates went out and called a bunch of their friends to come over and see everything before the cops came. That's scary, right? Because you have a contaminated crime scene. But that may not be all that far from the truth. Let me read you this email that I was sent by a friend of mine. Me and him have these discussions back and forth through email sometimes, private conversations about the topics that I'm making videos on also. I enjoy going back and forth with people, especially people who end up disagreeing with me about a topic, because it's always good to check your own self. What this is comments from Facebook and Instagram posts, and it's people saying that they were there with the roommates when the 911 call was placed and telling what went on during that time. It gives an account of the situation from someone who was there. We can't verify that these people were actually there, but the fact that it comes from their Instagram pictures and Instagram posts of the victims mean that they had to at least know the victims. Even though we can't verify that these people are who they say they are, we can go back and look at the post and see what others have commented around this. The people commenting on this post, the people who would have been there, are going to be local to the area. They're going to be other students on campus, faculty, whatever. They're going to be connected there. And we can go back and look. The cops have not released who all was at the house that morning, so we can't know. But what this person says makes a lot of sense. Let's get into it. I am not stating this as a fact. This is all not confirmed, hence the flare. For some reason, people refuse to see that, so I need to re-emphasize, if you do not like reading not confirmed information, then do not read it. Saw this comment on Facebook and wanted to share it here because it clarifies everything and to stop people from speculating about the survivors. Supposedly, only a few days after the murders, someone was asking questions on the victim's past Instagram post about the survivors. Two of the people who were at the house with the roommates when the call was made quickly came to their defense, and this is supposedly what they said. Keep in mind, this is all alleged. Two people who claimed to be at the house with the roommates when the bodies were discovered quickly came to the surviving roommate's defense and wrote that the roommates woke up, went upstairs to the kitchen, and noticed that the sliding glass door was open, and it was during that time they discovered Ethan. They did not say where he was found on that floor, but that it was so horrific that both girls went into shock and ran out of the house. One of the roommates fainted, and the other was beyond hysterical and not making any sense. Their frantic actions while coming out of the house caught the attention of people walking past. The people responding on the victim's Instagram claimed to be two of those people. Now that would make sense, right? That would make sense to me. If you come upstairs and you see your friend murdered on the floor, blood everywhere, cut and stabbed to death, you're going to freak out. It's not going to be one of those situations where it's like, oh, what's going on here? Is everything else okay? Let me go check. No, you're going to panic. You're going to run out. If your loved ones are laying dead on the floor and you just randomly find them waking up one afternoon, if somebody killed them, there's danger there. These are girls in college. They're going to freak out. It makes sense. I mean, it's all about being logical, right? Let's continue. They implied that the roommate who fainted had already dialed 911, but was so distraught that she fainted before she could give any info that the dispatcher could understand. The only info that the bystander who picked up the roommate's phone could give 911 dispatcher was she just saw her friend run out of the house and faint. That's how the 911 call was made, on the roommate's phone and by someone else, and why the call went out for an unconscious person. While that bystander was on the phone with 911, the other roommate was hysterically trying to explain that something was wrong with Ethan. Okay, So you got one person who runs out and she's dialing 911 on her phone because she just found her friend murdered. The other friend is panicking, in shock, like screaming, trying to talk, talking too fast, not making sense. People aren't understanding what she's trying to say. Relatable, right? Relatable. You would be panic stricken in a situation like that. Maybe you wouldn't, but most people would. So the person who had dialed 911 passed out before they got to tell the dispatcher what was going on. The person who picked up the phone then said, "Yeah, I don't know. My friend just ran out of her house panicking and she fainted. She's unconscious on the lawn." And she had called 911. So 911 sends an ambulance out for the unconscious person because they don't know what's going on in the house. The other friend's hysterically trying to tell them, but that call goes in quick and fast, and the ambulance is on its way. Let's continue. By this point, several more people had stopped to see what was happening, and one or two of them went into the house to see if they could help him. There were multiple people in the yard at that time, and those people began contacting their friends that somebody in the house was badly hurt. Someone called Ethan's brother, Hunter, to tell him something was wrong with his brother because he lived close to the house. And someone called one of the victim's boyfriends as he was also Ethan's best friend. That gets my attention. So Ethan's brother and best friend were both called before the cops ever got there to know that anything happened to the rest. They didn't go into detail on if either of those boys had arrived before paramedics did, but it kinda sounded like they did. They don't know if they went in the house or not, but if Ethan's best friend, one of the other victim's boyfriend, went into the house, you don't think he checked on his girlfriend if she was supposed to be at home and there's somebody dead in one floor? You don't think that he went through that house and found the rest of the victims? I guarantee you, with the brother and him, if they were there before police, they were all over that crime scene. But the boyfriend of one of the other victims, that's sketchy. Because is that not one of the people who we say could be a suspect? They're contaminating the crime scene? Eh, let's continue. They didn't go into detail on what kind of injuries Ethan suffered. They also didn't say if anyone went to check on the other roommates before the paramedics arrived, but it somewhat implied that someone had. The only details they gave about the scene itself was that it was incomprehensibly bloody. Yeah, someone had went to check on the other roommates. If one of the other victims' boyfriend was there, he went to go see if his girlfriend was okay. And if he didn't go check to see if his girlfriend was okay, now he's more of a suspect, am I right? I mean, let's be honest. Let's continue. While those people were in the house checking on Ethan and possibly the other roommates, the paramedics arrived to a very chaotic scene, believing they were there to assess an unconscious person outside, but were redirected to go inside to help someone who was hurt very badly. So they walked into the house unaware that it was a crime scene, contaminated most of everything on the second floor. I don't think it's fair to say that the paramedics contaminated everything on the second floor because it wasn't just paramedics. It was everybody going to see what's wrong with Ethan, going to check on Ethan, coming in, the paramedics coming in, not knowing what was going on because it hadn't been explained correctly, even though by the time they got there, most people knew exactly what it looked like and what it was. I understand these people were in shock, but the crime scene was contaminated. There's absolutely no way you can say that Ethan's brother came, but he didn't go in and check on his brother. Ethan's best friend came, but he didn't go check on Ethan. That best friend also happens to be the boyfriend of another victim. He didn't go check on him. Come on now. It doesn't sound like the roommates were roaming throughout the house carelessly, contaminating everything, fully aware that their friends had been murdered. It sounds like the scene was contaminated by numerous people who were trying to help, unaware and unable to comprehend what they were looking at, and that it was a crime scene. I think they knew it was a crime scene. As soon as you see somebody stabbed and bleeding out, and then especially when there's more than one of them, you know it's a crime scene. My heart breaks for those two poor innocent young females. Not only have they experienced a trauma so brutal that it can't not change who they are at their core, but they also have to live with fear that someone might be coming for them. And they grieve the loss, four friends, plus a life that they once had that will never exist again. And if that wasn't traumatizing enough, they also get to live with millions of people publicly criticizing, persecuting, and incorrectly judging them for actions people assume they may have or have not taken. Some of the comments left on the Instagram pictures of the victims, especially the ones the survivors were tagged in, were beyond nasty and if not downright cruel. I don't think that that's right. I don't think that people should be just automatically going in on the roommates, blaming the roommates. If they did react the way this email says that they reacted, that's normal. That's how you would expect them to react. Two girls in college. How do you expect them to react to coming up and finding their friends murdered in their house? And that is a traumatic experience for them. I mean, you can have the slight chance that maybe they had something to do with it, or you can take the big chance that they probably didn't have anything to do with it. And this has probably hurt them to their core. If information comes out that puts them as having something to do with it, then you can change direction a little bit. But when it's just pure speculation, people should not be attacking these girls. To put the blame on them when the only thing they really did was be in the house, at home, where they lived, sleeping at 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning when this situation took place. And they were lucky enough to not be victims also. And now they have to sleep every night knowing that the killer's still out there. The killer that came into their home is still out there. Let's continue. I don't understand how our society has become so inhumane. It sounds like the two surviving roommates' behaviors were 100% appropriate for the situation they found themselves in. And I agree. Like I said, this is all alleged, but I think it explains a lot. I am marking this as information rather than theory because I'm not making a theory myself. I'm just relying information given by the individuals who were there when the call was made. And then down here at the bottom, edit. We are all aware of the police's unconscious explanation. This post is not asking how the police explained it. This post is relaying what the person who was there said about the call when it happened, according to someone in a Facebook group. What you choose to believe is your business. But legally, the police can say/withhold whatever information they want and have an incentive to hide this information because it reveals how contaminated the crime scene is and would make their chance of finding the killer even worse. I am sharing this knowing what the police's press release said because it doesn't take away from what the person said and can still offer a fresh perspective. Okay, so the big thing I took from that was it does explain the 911 call for the unconscious person. It does make sense. It does seem legitimate, you know? We can't verify that this is true or false, but what we can do is say, does this make sense? Yes. To me, it makes sense. This is a roundabout what I feel like would happen on a college campus if somebody woke up to this. They would panic, they would scream, they would run outside, try to call 911. Possibly somebody faints, passes out. Possibly somebody's super hysterical and can't get out what they're trying to say, panicking, crying, screaming, upset, out of control. Somebody passing by sees this going on, picks up the phone that the one person had called 911 on, and is talking to 911, trying to tell them that she doesn't know anything, but her friend just ran out and passed out after already calling 911. The 911 dispatcher knew nothing but the unconscious person when she put the call in for the ambulance. So while the ambulance is on their way, maybe it didn't take long. Maybe they just didn't read the notification before they got there to know what exactly was going on. But if people had got there before them and went into the house and saw what was going on and come back out, they should have prepared the ambulance drivers for what they saw. I will say that. You can't just send somebody into a crime scene. And there's absolutely no way that you go into a house and you see people stabbed to death with blood everywhere and you don't realize that it's a crime scene. What stuck out to me most in this is the fact that the Ethan's best friend is one of the other victim's boyfriend. Which one is that? Jack or Jake? Because if it is Jack, then we've got a lot of things linking Jack to this house and to these people. And it's kind of uncanny. That doesn't mean Jack did anything. But if he's Ethan's best friend and he's Kaylee's boyfriend, and Kaylee and Maddie were both blowing his phone up that early in the morning, and Ethan was the only person not in the bedroom or in the bed when these crimes occurred, and he's supposedly best friends with Ethan, and they had been out drinking and partying that night, and the girls had been blowing his phone up right before all this took place. At the very least, it doesn't look good. And then, I'm a hunter. So I'm not going to go and say, oh, because he's a hunter, he could do something like this. I can gut a deer, field dress a deer, I can quarter it out, I can process it. But that doesn't mean I could do that to a human. So just because you're a hunter and you do that with animals and meat that you're going to eat, it's not the same as, oh, well, just because you do that, you could do it to a person. But he is a hunter, so he would possibly have the type of knife needed to do what he did, the type of knife described. Anyway, guys, comment down below. Let me know what you think. Like the video, subscribe to the channel to see more. Have a great day, and we'll see you later.